Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, John Clark, Scott Cosenza, and Graham Noble. And this is the Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. Trade wars. Good God, y'all. What are they good for? Case of the good old USA, it seems to be, well, everything. The United States has been collecting record amounts of revenue from the president's sweeping global tariffs. According to the Treasury Department's July 23rd Daily Treasury Statement, the U.S. government has garnered $27 billion from customs and certain excise taxes so far this month. Fiscal year to date, which runs from October 1 to September 30, tariff income has reached nearly $150 billion. Who said it couldn't be done? Let's watch this clip.
They're agreeing to open up their countries to trade at zero tariff. So that's a very big factor.
Andrew, what did we just see with Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen? Sorry if I messed that up, Ursula.
Yeah, it's von der Leyen because she's a lion, you know. But anyway, I would say one thing though. The tariff revenue, it's coming from American businesses and consumers, the one who import these goods. It's not that foreign governments are paying these tariffs. It's not as if, China or the European Union are paying these levies. Now, so with this whole US and the EU trade agreement, now, of course, the headline is that, the 15% tariff rate is going to stay on most European goods entering the United States, including automobiles. That's lower than the 30% that Trump had threatened to impose, but is higher than the Liberation Day level of the 10% baseline tariff. Now, I think the big thing coming out of this trade agreement, like a lot of these other trade agreements, Indonesia, the Philippines, is that these countries are investing huge sums of money in the United States. This is on top of the trillions of dollars in private capital investment from likes of, Apple and Nvidia and Google. This deal alone, the bloc's going to invest about $750 billion in energy, $600 billion in investment in the U.S. economy, and hundreds of billions of dollars in military equipment. Now, the European Union pushed back on this, and they said that, well, it's not the governments that are investing directly into this money, it's European companies. Now, there's some pushback wondering, okay, but what if they don't follow through? When Trump is head of the country over the next 3 years and he doesn't see Europe following through on this agreement, then it's most likely that he would just say, okay, fine, so let's go back up to 30% levies. So now moving forward, all eyes are on the China trade agreements. The Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jameson Greer, they were recently in Stockholm, and they likely agreed to a 90-day extension of the tariff trade truce. So overall, if the U.S. economy can come out of this trade saga unscathed, meaning no inflation, then I guess you could call this a win for Trumponomics 2.0.
The one thing I disagreed with Andrew about is that he didn't focus on his first point for the entirety of his intro there. And his first point was, said differently, this is an excise tax on the wallets of Americans. That's where this money comes from. It's no great victory for liberty or the American people. It's a yoke around our neck that we have to provide for some political benefit that I don't quite understand. And it would be much better off and pro-American and would make America great again if we kept the people's money in their own pockets.
Can we go back to Graham on rebates?
I don't get that at all. I mean, I don't think it was a good idea when we did it during the pandemic. I don't think it's a good idea now. I don't understand why America has got so many more useful things it could do with the money that it's bringing in, regardless of where that money's coming from. The revenues that it's bringing in, it's got plenty of things that it could do with that, which are constructive for the country and for the future. And so we're now going to send out, I've heard, I think initially $600 checks. And then I think I heard like $2,400 checks for a family or something. And really, I know I want to say most infantile justification for that is, well, because then people go out and spend a bunch of money and that stimulates the economy. But it's kind of, really, I mean, I think people will spend more money and stimulate the economy when they see that the country is on the right fiscal track,
Right.
and they have more hope for the future. I don't think you need to put a bunch of extra dollars in people's pockets for kind of like a short-term high. I don't get that myself.
Right.
What I find comical, however, is that you have two things here. One is that tariffs, no matter what you say, no matter whether they're one-time or persistent, tariffs raise prices. That's just the fact of the matter. And now you're going to have rebate checks, and the Federal Reserve, credit to the Fed and the economists, they've done research on this, and they show that direct government transfer payments, they are also inflationary because the government, when people have higher disposable income, they generally spend more money, and then when they push up, and that pushes up prices. So you have the inflation aspect of tariffs, and then you're gonna have an inevitable inflation aspect from the tax rebates. Which, if anybody doesn't know, Senator Josh Hawley, he introduced a bill recently to implement this measure.
All right. Can you just let John Clark speak, please?
Actually, I was going to
say that whole thing. So what do you got to
to say exactly what Andrew said. That's exactly what I was going to say.
So this is not winning. It's not. We're not winning.
But
You've got a huge deficit and debt.
So I agree with Graham completely on the rebates idea. It's like Bidenomics redux. It blew up our inflationary cycle then. I think it was the Tax Foundation just recently came out with a report, Andrew may have seen it, showing the impacts of tariffs on food inflation. Not a good thing politically for the president. I totally understand where the libertarian Scott is coming from, but there's a little bit of a different nuance here, though I would just add, not to disagree with you, Scott, not that I wouldn't, but yes, it's coming out of taxpayer money. If it went to paying down the deficit, ultimately, that would be a benefit. We have to pay it down somewhere. We have to either cut benefits, which I'm sure you would agree we should do. But there's another effect that, Andrew could tell me if I'm wrong, but these tariffs cause more competitiveness for U.S. domestic products, and they cause less of a shifting of our trade imbalance. It also, as I think the president emphasized, is going to reduce tariffs on U.S. goods going to Europe. So that is a net benefit to us. But I do believe that overall these tariffs, for instance, the tomato tariff and the beef tariffs, consumers don't want to pay more. As a farmer, I'll say this, consumers don't want to pay more for food, but these policies actually help U.S. farmers who are suffering horribly over time. In 10 years from now, if we don't do something, we're going to find ourselves importing all of our food and at the mercy of foreign producers of everything from antibiotics to microchips to DEF fluid.
Absolutely.
So I do think that there's a balance there where you don't kill the baby and throw it out with the bathwater. So I'm actually relieved it's not worse than it is, if that's a positive. But it is highly complex, as Mr. Moran demonstrated by his cyclone.
Let me just jump out of the gate here.
No, you can't disagree. I didn't disagree with you. You can't disagree with me.
And say it's absolutely bonkers to suggest, as Mr. Clark has just done, that if we don't implement these excise taxes, somehow we won't be able to buy the kind of beef that we want. We have labeling laws. You can't take a side of beef that's full of hormones from China and sell it in an American supermarket and say it's grass-raised, American-made beef. So it's up to the consumer to decide what they want. If the people want junk protein from dodgy
That's what people can afford. That's the problem, Scott. Not everybody has money.
It's what they choose to afford and what they choose to buy with their money. And I agree that they often won't
go as far. If it doesn't go as far, you've got people out here that, families that make maybe $25,000 a year. That is not going to get your fancy ass grass-fed, no hormones, no antibiotics beef. That's not going to cut it.
Well, they're not going to be eating steaks every night for dinner. I agree with you there. But
they can't even make a meat.
Better off without this excise tax in place. That family does better by not having the government meddle in these financial affairs. The people, Graham made a point. He said that there's lots of better uses for this money, no matter where it comes from. And I appreciate that sentiment, and I agree with it. But also, the best spenders of this money are the people who made it in the first place, not government bureaucrats.
I would just add, not to call you bonkers, I wouldn't do that, though. If you think that your beef is safe and labeled when it comes from China, then that's a high trust in our regulatory systems. But what I was hinting at is a longer-term prospect. For instance, I remember in the 80s that people said, well, you should buy American, don't buy a Subaru. Well, Subaru's made a good car, and they made it cheaper, and we lost our auto industry. And, so maybe that's okay. But I'm suggesting it's sort of like a reverse of the tragedy of the commons. If people are going to buy what's cheapest all the time, in the end, that could achieve a calamity. And so I'm just saying that some balance, and when there is an imbalance in the tariffs charged on U.S. goods versus imported goods, which has for years been a drain on our economy, we can only leverage and print money to give people checks. That's why I think we all agree that is bonkers.
People don't
We
always
have a
buy
huge-
the cheapest.
Yeah.
And if you go to a Walmart, you'll see on today's Walmart shelves a lot of organic stuff that never was there a decade ago, because they're willing to spend some amount more money on what they think is a better product. And John Clark, as an attorney, I would hope that you would jump in here on one of the few wins we have culturally and societally, which is, I don't trust the regulators. I trust our civil justice system, and I trust the lawyers that would attack like a pack of dogs some supermarket chain that was found to be mislabeling foreign meat in violation of our laws. So.
Okay, we've gone a little bit off kilter on these guys.
And I don't trust Walmart. So
yeah, it's not. Graham, I'm going to give you the last word. You wrote a great story this week for Liberty Nation News about how the elite media is handling the tariff success. Can you give us just about 20, 30 seconds on maybe a change of heart?
Well, yeah, sure, I can do that, Sarah. I mean, it's basically they're not really having a change of heart, and they're not suddenly all pro-Trump or anything. It's not. This is not.
That's not going to happen.
This is not a "we all lived happily ever after" story. And basically, they're just saying, look, we have to admit, we got no choice now. We have to admit that at least so far, Trump's trade wars and his tariffs and all that kind of stuff has not taken a wrecking ball to the economy, which we said it would have done already. And we were wrong. But we still think that's going to happen in the future. And they almost said it as if, some of them almost said it in a way as if they were like rooting for future failure, for future disaster. But for now, they said, yeah, okay, we said he was going to destroy the economy by July, and it hasn't happened. And so, mea culpa.
So now they're just floating that false sense of security. Well, you know what? Americans are mostly for the underdog and optimistic for a better day to dawn. Maybe we are just seeing that. And as a side note, I will gladly sign over my rebate check back into the U.S. coffers. Thanks, panel. Thanks for watching. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all as well. Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. We'd like to take a moment for a shout out to our board's producer, Laura Valkovic, who's on maternity leave, bringing in another member of Liberty Nation News into the fold. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.